All right. Welcome to the Adaptable Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Coach Carter, your host, and I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years now. Actually, started in 2004. And, I haven't been one of those fancy entrepreneurs that, figured out how to raise $1 million at 22 or had a big trust fund. No, man, I was like the bootstrap kind. And I've been in so many different areas, so many different industries. And I'm super grateful for that. And it brought me to where I am now. So we're going to go over a lot of stuff and why I named it the Adaptable Entrepreneurs, because I believe that's the most important thing that you need to be an entrepreneur. You need to be able to adapt, because rarely does it ever just start out, hey, I made these projections and I did my whole business plan and it just went right to plan. Like, that shit never happens. There's always crazy stuff happening. There's always ups and downs. There's always things that are just kind of punch you right in the face. And so you got to be adaptable the whole time and really, have a vision of where you're going, but be able to pivot. And, I learned to kind of just keep going even when it seemed impossible. And for a lot of young entrepreneurs, I hope that resonates, and, just understand that shit's going to be bad sometimes, and you just got to keep going to get through it. But, when I look back, I seriously overcome so much. I have so many stories, so many different industries to kind of share with, that I wouldn't change anything. I really wouldn't. I'd probably change a couple of decisions, maybe not get backed into a corner a couple of times, but for the most part, I'm super happy where I'm at. I understand how to be an entrepreneur, what an entrepreneur really is, because I think when I first started out, I didn't know what the fuck an entrepreneur was. I was just like, yeah, let's just kind of create this business and see what happens. Like, man, when I first started, I had no idea about the financials, about, how to sell anything. I just wanted to kind of do something different. School was never my thing, and you hear that a lot with entrepreneurs, but really I wasn't great in school. So I wanted to try to, do my own thing. And I started bartending actually at the age of 21, just kind of like Cocktail, Tom Cruise Cocktail. It's an old reference. But I was actually a flair bartender as well, and I was traveling all around the Western Hemisphere, at least, doing all these competitions and going to Vegas and the World Championships. Because even with bartending, I wanted to take it to the next level. And I think with an entrepreneur, you always want to take it to the next level, right? We're always looking to, how do I increase my sales? How do I come up with a better idea all the fucking time, right? We're always thinking like I can never shut it off. And it's been so hard. I'm 42 years old, and I'm finally realizing how to relax a little bit, because I've been an entrepreneur since I was basically 21, 22 years old. But like I said, I was flair bartending. I got to meet so many cool people, travel, and I think that was really good for me, because I got to get a little bit of traveling out of my system before I just hunkered down to become a fucking crazy entrepreneur. And my first venture was actually in 2004, opening up a flair bartending school. So that was my first little toe dip into becoming an entrepreneur. And the first mistake with that was that not too many people wanted to learn how to be learn how to be flair bartenders. So, the first lesson we kind of learned is know your audience, know who you're marketing to, know who you're selling to. But it really turned into a bartending school. So it's basically 3 flair bartenders who worked at nightclubs teaching people how to, open up their own bars, bartend. And so like we were the real deal, right? We were doing it. We were bartending every single night and teaching this bartending school. So I think that was a really cool little intro for me to kind of like learn how, like, what entrepreneurship was all about, even though we still had no idea. And in 2007, we wanted to open up a magazine. So I remember my partner with the bartending school was like, hey, I know we've been talking about kind of making a magazine here and there. Let's do it. And we just said, fuck it. Like, let's figure it out. Let's do it. And within about 6 months, we've launched our first magazine, which is called D-List Magazine. D for dress, dine, drink, and dance. And man, my buddy James and I started that with 5 other partners, whittled it down at the very end. It was basically just me and him, because there's always so much crazy shit that happens in partnerships, and we'll get into all that. But that was really my the bartending school was sort of a toe dip into entrepreneurship, and this is really like, hey, we actually kind of have a little bit of a staff. I mean, we barely paid anybody because it was such a just we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. We were just creating a beautiful magazine, throwing amazing parties, and not really paying attention to anything else. And we were super adaptable. We figured it out how to like make it through, how to print the issue the actual magazine every single month, which costs $8,000 to $12,000 a month. We had to raise that in advertising, which seemed like so much money to us back then. It was just insane. How could we ever do that? We got big advertisers on like Budweiser and Sky Vodka because they were sponsoring us for being flair bartenders. So we just kind of tried to pull all of our contacts into like this arena and figure out how to do it the best, right? We had so many contacts from being flair bartenders and teaching people how to open up their bars and being bartenders that we had kind of doorways into the whole nightclub scene, the nightlife scene. Therefore, we could sell advertising. We really used our connections and to be able to fund this because we didn't get any money. I think my parents gave me $3,000 to like start this magazine, and so we ran it for about 7-8 years. And we threw, like I said, we threw huge parties. Everything that I feel like I did in the past was such a stepping stone to where I am now. We barely paid ourselves. We barely paid a staff. We were giving them $100 to write an article. Some photographers would pay a few $100 too, and things like that. It wasn't anything crazy, but we were printing 15 to 20,000 issues every single month, getting advertising, getting into all these different bars and nightclubs, and throwing these huge parties. And that was kind of what kind of sustained us, was that we became these party throwers, these promoters, basically. Then people would pay us to do that, and we could actually print the magazine and keep the things going. So we always had to like adapt the whole time and just figure out how to make more money. And because the biggest thing was we still had no idea what we were doing. When I look back at that, at 2007, which was like 15 years ago, over 15, almost 20 years ago, I really wish that I knew, I really wish that I understood the finance. That's a big part of what I do now, is teaching entrepreneurs about the finance and not about the accounting portion, because you can get accountants to do that. But I always hate it when I'm working with people and they say, oh, I have an accountant and they kind of run my finances. Well, like if you don't know your finances like we didn't know back then, you just get into so much trouble. And that will just continue on with more stories that I tell you, because when we were younger, we didn't know anything. We had no idea about the finances. We just were like, hey, we got $10,000 in the bank. Cool, we can go to print. Hopefully we'll get more money in later, and we'll pay this guy and that guy and then pay the rent. I mean, it was just we were just throwing shit together to kind of figure it out. But I think the reason I named this podcast The Adaptable Entrepreneur is because I think if you understand finance, you can be adaptable in any, in any category, in any entrepreneurship venue or venture. I really believe that you can. And that was a big mistake when I first started, was thinking that, we need to be able to talk to people real well and sell, and like not knowing your finances will get you in so much trouble. So that is going to be a huge portion of this podcast, is really understanding finance from an entrepreneur's point of view. Knowing what your cash flow is like. And I don't want to get into the accounting jargon and all that shit, because like I said, there's accountants out there that do that. You should meet with your accountant once a month and get that follow up and go over your P&Ls and balance sheet, and they should explain all that stuff to you. But I'm talking about like the real actual finance, because at the end of the day, like sometimes at the end of the year, your accountant will tell you, hey, congratulations, you made $70,000, you made $100,000, you made $500,000, and you're looking at your account, you're going, where the fuck is it? Like, are you serious? Like, it's just a different language, and that's what has always bothered me about understanding finance from an entrepreneur's point of view, is that there's so much high level stuff that you should know, but you don't need to know, but you need to know that the basics of it, and that is cash flow. How do I manage my cash flow? How do I budget? How do I take last week's, like in a restaurant, I take last week's revenue and say, okay, we can budget for this next week. This is how much we sold last week, so we can use it for this week. And there's all these little things that you can do to really help you not get fucked, which is a big thing because in my next venture, well, actually before that, sorry, we did the after G List magazine, we opened up a sound chemists, a DJ. Basically, it's just a DJ marketing. We had a bunch of DJs on our sheet that we could book out and everything like that. But once again, it just kind of fell under the same umbrella as we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. So we didn't know how to add value and sell that. We just knew all the DJs and knew all the club owners, and we had a big marketing platform. And when I look back, I'm like, damn, we could have actually like used that platform to market the hell out of these guys and then upcharge the nightclubs, but we just didn't know how to do that yet. So once again, not understanding finance and marketing and being an entrepreneur, we just had good ideas, and that's the biggest thing is good ideas are fucking awesome, but if you can't execute and understand really what you're doing, what you're trying to achieve, you're going to go nowhere. But the big project was after D-List magazine. We had this, like I said, everything's a stepping stone. We had so many great connections making this magazine, and all the club owners knew us, and everybody in town knew what we were doing and knew of the magazine. That it was about 2011, and cannabis was getting very big. And so one of our friends came up to us and said, "Hey, I'm huge in the cannabis scene. You guys are the magazine makers. How about we come together? We create a cannabis magazine." And that was 2011, right before we legalized here in Washington and started to legalize on the West Coast. And we were like, "Fuck yeah, let's do it. Let's kind of have a fresh start," which seemed like a really good idea. Like we were running this old magazine D-List for a long time. We could never get ahead. We could never figure it out. So let's kind of do it. We knew what to do and how to do it, but we could just never get ahead, right? So many of you guys probably felt that, right? You could never freaking get ahead. So this was a great fresh start for us. So we got a $30,000 loan from one of our DJ buddies in Vegas, and that kind of kicked us off to be able to create our first issue. It's called Dope Magazine, DOPE, Defending Our Plant Everywhere was what it stood for, and we ran that for, gosh, probably about 7 years, and we finally sold it to High Times, and we'll have so many stories about that and how that happened. But even with that, we grew this magazine. It was a zero. We started with zero. Started with $30,000 as an investment, and then we grew it. We took on more investors. We started meeting more people. Brought on a few more $1 million. Raised a few more $1 million, and finally sold it to High Times for over $11 million. And of course, I barely got any of that because we got backed into a corner, right? Because we had so many investors and high money people and all that stuff. And oh my God, I got great stories about that. And that was a big learning experience for us. But once again, not understanding your finances and letting somebody else do it for you is the biggest mistake that you could do, that you could ever make. And I don't care how big your business is, you, the owner, and care and give a shit the most about what you do, that you need to understand your finances, and you need to be able to make decisions and see how much cash you have and how much cash you've spent. And if you don't, then you're going to get into bad positions, like we did with Dope Magazine. It was great. It was successful. We paid ourselves a ton of money doing it. We learned so much. I mean, it was a very successful thing. It could have been a lot more successful if we didn't, hire people to just take care of this and that and these finances and that, and put our trust in people. You want to hire people, you want to delegate, you want to trust, you want to hire a CEO maybe for your company someday, and that's great. But you still need to be in charge. You still need to, like I said, understand the business side, because no one else is going to do it for you. There's no magic fucking pill like everybody says. Oh hey, I'll turn your business around and we'll market this and do that and make a ton of money. Like, that shit doesn't happen. Like, you have to care about it. You have to know about it. You have to make the right decisions. And the only way you make the right decisions is if you understand where your business is really at, right? I mean, you could have $100,000 in the bank, but if your payroll is $120,000, you don't have any money. You have negative $20,000. So it's a lot of people are running their business by their bank account. And I'll probably do a whole episode on that, because that's just the worst thing that you could do. Or just trusting that somebody else is taking care of it. We hired old gray-haired people that were really smart. They've been accountants for years, and we still got into trouble. We had one time at Dope Magazine, somebody came up to us, one of our accountants said, "Oh, you guys aren't going to make payroll." We're like, shit, payroll's in 3 days. How much are we short? Oh, $90,000. Like, how do we not know that a little bit sooner? You get 3 fucking days and we had to come up with $90,000. What do you think happens, right? What do you think happens? You got to go to your investors, and then they go, "Oh, you're fucked. Cool. Give me X, give me Y, give me Z, give me everything, and then I'll give you that and get you out of the fucking jam." That happens to so many entrepreneurs that are starting to gain that success. So that's a big thing that we'll talk about that I really am passionate about, is owning your business, knowing your finances, and not getting fucked, and not letting other people make those big decisions for you. You should have people you trust come in and give you advice, and you should have a board, and a sounding board at the very least, not even a professional board, just a sounding board. But you need to be able to make decisions on your own, and the only way to do that, is to know your fucking finances. And you don't got to be a genius, but you got to know the basics, and we're going to go over a ton of the basics. So during my ventures with Dope Magazine, like I said, I was one of 7 owners. We started that, and it was going really well. We think we were on the Inc. 500 fastest growing businesses. So we made the Inc. 500 list. I think we were top like 200 or something like that. So I was doing that, and then I got a phone call from a buddy who owned a great restaurant in downtown Seattle and said, "I want you to be the GM of my restaurant." He was opening a new one, and I said, "You know what? I kind of want that because I need a little bit of a break from being an entrepreneur, because it's so exhausting. As you know, it's so exhausting. Oh my God, you just nonstop." So I was doing the Dope Magazine about, I was still doing my job. I was still creating all the magazines and in charge of all that stuff, but doing it at more of a part-time level, and then doing this, being the GM of the restaurant, which was so fun for me because I could kind of relax a little bit and just be myself and meet some great people. And I've been in restaurants forever. Like I said, I was flair bartending. My grandfather owned a restaurant. So growing up, my uncles owned restaurants. So it's kind of in my blood as well. So that's a lot. I love this industry. And so this was a really fun experience for me to see kind of how a really great restaurant was run, and then I could bring my personality and my ideas to that as well, my entrepreneurship, my skills, and really market and grow that restaurant and make it the best that it could be. And so I was GM in Radiator Whiskey in Pikes Place Market, and then Dope started getting so busy that after that I had to kind of back off and had to put in my, give notice there at Radiator Whiskey. And even though I love the people there and the owner, and kind of go back to Dope Magazine, because I think we just raised $500,000 or $600,000 our first round, and I needed to be there full time to really take that to the next level. And so after that I went back to Dope. Like I said, we sold it to High Times. There's a lot of stuff happening in between that we'll get into later. And I started coaching entrepreneurs after that, and just really, I wanted to be really, really upfront and not let them get screwed over by certain people. And and it's, when I look back at that whole experience, it's not their fault. They're the investors, right? They're trying to make money. Like, that's what you just got to know. You got to know what it is. So it was my fault for not understanding my business the way that I needed to understand it. So that is what the big takeaway is today, is own your business, know your business. So today I opened up Lady J, which is a restaurant in West Seattle. And there's 4 partners there, of 2 chefs. One of them's the bar manager and GM. They're just three amazing people. And then there's me, the entrepreneur. And we have a really great team, because they understand the restaurant industry and the food and the beverage so well. And then I can do all the other stuff. I can market, I can create, I can grow this business. So we opened up that in 2019. Woohoo! And the pandemic hit. So we opened it up about 6 months before the pandemic, which was so awesome. But we adapted, right? We figured it out. We didn't have to close down. Luckily, we bought a spot that had a patio so we could serve people outside. We opened up a butcher shop inside of our restaurant. We were doing takeout meals the whole time during COVID. And so it was somewhat of a blessing in disguise to really kick me back into being just a crazy entrepreneur. I was like, we got to do everything we can to just keep this place going. And so it really, I think it really helped us become what we are now. And I always said from the beginning that you can't just own a restaurant anymore. You have to create more, right? It's really hard to just run a restaurant because there's, it's so expensive, right? I mean, just takeout items. I mean, fucking food to go boxes are in gloves. I mean, Jesus Christ, these things are just like 10 times more expensive than they were. And labor is getting just insane. So I wanted to create a brand and excite people and not just have a restaurant. And so that's really what I do now. We opened up a bakery. That's our second location. It's like a bakery coffee shop called Little J. It does um, Little J does little breakfast sandwiches and coffee and the most amazing pastries you've ever had. And that's where I am now. I'm in our actually commercial kitchen because we expanded because it's going really well. We have a huge demand for it because we're not just right. We're not just a bakery and a coffee shop. We are a brand. You know, we do podcasts and we do so much social media content. And so we're adapting all the time. And guess what? I understand the financials. That is my job. And nobody is going to come in and take that away and say, oh, hey, let me be a partner and let me do this and let me buy into this and let me make more decisions. No way. Like, I understand this more than anybody else will. And we will make the best decisions, the four of us, because I understand the financials and I can show us where we're going. Hey, in 2 months, we're going to be low on cash because this is happening. So we got to do something before that happens. Hey, we went over budget. You know, last week we only did this much. You went over budget. Why are we doing this? We can have these open conversations. And I'm not ever going to go to them and go, oh, hey, guess what? We just don't have money anymore. Sorry, we got to shut down, because we can project that. We can see what's happening. That's the most important thing. And yeah, we've had ups and downs. No, you know, it's never perfect. You're never just going to get in there and just crush it the whole time. But we've sustained for it'll be 5 years for Lady J in September 15th, which is great. And it'll be a year coming up here October 2nd for Little J. And like I said, we just expanded. So things are going really good. And we just keep adapting. And so let's break it down. Let's close it out. We'll keep these things short, but to be the best adaptable entrepreneur, you need to understand your finances, because selling and marketing is amazing and you need those tools. But if you don't understand your finances, it doesn't matter how much you sell because you could spend more, right? So understand your finances, not from an accountant's point of view, but from an entrepreneur's point of view. And that's what we're going to talk about moving forward in a lot of these podcasts, is not just accountant speak and confusing everybody and debits and credits. I don't give a shit about that. Like, let's talk about like real entrepreneur cash flow and finance and budgeting and understanding where you're at and being able to see, having a runway so you can actually sleep at night. Because the worst feeling ever is waking up in the middle of the night and going, how am I going to pay rent? How am I going to pay payroll? How am I going to pay this bill and this vendor? It's just the fucking worst thing in the world. And I'm sure so many people have gone through it. And that's what I really want to coach out of you, is just if you can understand this simple process that we do with our finances in this simple language, you're gonna be unstoppable. So we'll wrap it up there for the Adaptable Entrepreneur. Once again, I'm Coach Carter. Thanks for listening, and be on the lookout because we're going to drop these once a week. And hope to hear from you soon. Later.